The purpose of these lessons is to show you the logic behind the most basic Chinese characters, beginning with the simplest pictograms, and later combining these elements to create more complex characters. This lesson contains 7 characters, 3 of which are again based on the character Tian in the previous lesson, number 73. The other 4 characters are components of those 3. Before we begin, let's quickly review Li from lesson 73, a combination of the earth radical Tu with Tian to form a settlement of 25 families in ancient times and the plot of land they cultivated. Our first character is based on Li, showing how the hillsides were often terraced in order to be cultivated. Any farm plot naturally had to conform to the surrounding landscape. It's also pronounced third tone Li, Li. At one time, this character was simply an extended meaning of Li for a settlement. By pairing the jade radical with Li, we arrive at its original meaning. A sculptor, following the contours of the marbling within the jade stone in order to chisel from it a work of art, incorporating the various colors: deep green, reddish-brown, yellow ochre, and pure white. The many definitions ascribed to this character become perfectly logical extensions of this idea of working a block of jade. We'll start with the terraced landscape to create the word for geography, 地理。别问有关地理的事，我向来一知半解。Don't ask me anything geography related. I've never had a really good grasp of it. Notice the idiom 一知半解, literally half knowledge, meaning to have only a superficial or inadequate understanding of a subject. An example of the technical phrase 目理 is included to show the concept behind li. Here it refers to the direction of the grain in something made of wood. 你这个书架的目理走向真好看。The direction of the grain on your bookcase looks really nice. These next examples are of li used as a verb, meaning to arrange, control, or manage, just as the sculptor manipulates his tools, managing to bring forth the various stratified layers of color in his block of jade. 理财 means to manage one's finances. 你有什么个人理财计划呢? Do you have a personal financial management plan? 理事 is a member of a council, literally, a manager of official business. A 理事会 is the council or board of directors itself. 理事会的理事国从10个增加到13个. The member nations of the council increased from 10 to 13. 理家 means to manage the home, to do housework. 很多女子离家后必须再外出工作. After finishing the housework, many women still have to go to another job outside. Just as the layers and contours of a piece of jade are in a fixed order, to tidy up or arrange in order is 清理. 地下室必须清理清理才能使用. The basement needs a good cleaning before it can be used. 水灾过后，工人正在清理街道. After the flood, workers were cleaning up the streets. 你得清理脑子中的这些念头。You need to clear your mind of these ideas. Speaking of minds, one's psychology or mental state is rendered as 心理, literally your mind landscape. 她不肯嫁是有心理因素，跟父母有关系。Her not wanting to marry is due to psychological issues related to her parents. 跟女友吵架以后，他的心里很乱。He was in a very confused mental state after that argument with his girlfriend. Remember when we introduced Dao as the path, the way, the direction to follow in a spiritual sense? Well, now we have 道理, meaning the right way, the logical path, or to use one's reasoning faculties. 你女儿显然有她的道理。Your daughter obviously has her reasons. 你这样想不是没有道理。Putting it like that is not unreasonable. Notice that Chinese also uses double negatives to mean a positive. An idiom for fair and reasonable legal decisions is 入情入理, literally conforming to one's sense of both fairness and logic. 这样的判定是入情入理的. This sort of judgment is fair and reasonable. You'll recall that the character 性 is sometimes used as a noun suffix indicating a quality or characteristic. So, 理性 refers to one's capacity for reason and logic. 我认为过半的人是不理性的. I believe that over half of people lack good judgment. 有些行动家的言论已失去理性. The views expressed by some activists do not match reality. For a person who's fair and reasonable, there's the adjective 明理, literally a clear-headed person who follows the contours of logic. For a verb, Mandarin uses 讲理, literally to emphasize reason. 我公公是明理的人，很好沟通。My grandfather is a reasonable person and easy to communicate with. 你顺着他，他就很讲理。Agree with her and she's a very reasonable person. 要9点回家太早了吧？爸，讲理一点。9 o'clock is too early to be back home. Be reasonable, Dad. 跟那个人讲理几乎是不可能的。It's nearly impossible to reason with him. 请你去跟你的儿子讲讲理。Try and get through to your son, will you? The verb 理解 literally means to break apart those stratified layers. In other words, to comprehend each piece of the whole. 他的一切行为我都不理解。I cannot understand any of his actions. 大家都理解那个话是指我而言的。Everybody figured out that that remark was aimed at me. 我们不能理解那个人的心理。There's no way we can truly comprehend his state of mind. 我不理解你为什么这样恼火。I can't understand why you're so annoyed. Notice the expression 恼火, meaning annoyed, irritated, or vexed. We saw in lesson 44 that 论 takes bamboo strips used for writing and places them under a cover to represent the collection and arrangement of items in correct order. With the addition of the speech radical, the meaning is expanded to carefully collected and arranged speech, otherwise known as an essay or a theory. So, 理论 combines our stratified block of jade with carefully arranged speech to express the layers of logic necessary in a theory. 从理论上讲，这是可能的。Speaking from a theoretical standpoint, it's possible. 你看不看理论性的著作？ Do you read theoretical works? If we try to imagine the way things should be arranged, or a structure that should be followed, we are imagining an ideal, known as 理想 in Chinese. 我侄女已找到理想的工作。My niece has found the perfect, the ideal job for her. 这天气出去爬山是最理想不过的。This weather is ideal for hiking in the mountains. Notice how 不过的 is sometimes added after a superlative for emphasis. Literally, it cannot be surpassed. Another phrasing of the superlative degree is the addition of 最为 before an adjective. 背心以羊毛最为理想。Wool is the ideal material for vests. 我拍的电影中，你是最为理想的主角。In the movie I'm making, you'd be perfect for the leading role. Next comes the more metaphysical usage. 真理 means righteousness or truth with a capital T. 天理 refers to heavenly justice, the logical order that should prevail in a perfect world. 他把真理看得比什么都重要。He places righteousness above all else. 为什么要这样？真是天理何在？ Why did this happen? Is there no justice in this world? 若有天理，那个人会不得好死。If there's a God above, that guy will meet a horrible death. A Taiwanese friend recalls saying that as a child and receiving an instant rebuke and pinch on the cheek from her horrified mother. One isn't supposed to wish ill fortune on others, ever. Now we come to a very colloquial expression, 理会, that can be interpreted two ways. First, it means to understand or comprehend. 理 referring to logic and reason, while 会 is a coming together or meeting. In other words, everything converging to form a logical whole. Second, it means to notice, heed, pay attention to someone or something. Literally, taking the trouble to understand, recognize, or comprehend that person or thing. This second usage is more commonly found in the negative with 不 or 没. 我完全理会你的意思. I completely understand what you mean. 你根本不用去理会这些小事. There's absolutely no need to give those matters a second thought. 他成名以后，不再理会他的朋友了. Once he became famous, he no longer recognized his old friends. 他全然不理会其他人的指责. she totally ignores how others criticize her. The expression 理会 can sometimes be shortened to simply 理 with the same meaning. 儿女的违法活动，你为何看着不理呢？ Why are you unconcerned about your children's illegal activities? 员工好奇地看着我，可是我没理他们。The staff watched me curiously, but I paid them no mind. Now here's an example using the 连都 structure for emphasis. 有好几个月，他连理都不理我。For the past several months, she's completely ignored me. Here's an example of two meanings of 理 that I saw on a bank window advertising their financial services. To manage and to pay attention to. 你不会理财，财就不理你。If you don't manage your finances, wealth will never come your way. Literally, wealth will ignore you. All of the above sentences were an example of today's first character, 理. Now, before going further, we need a quick review of 换 from lesson 57, where we encountered the shuttle of a loom. Today's second character is that same shuttle with thread attached. Usually pronounced third tone, 语, 语. It represents one hand passing the shuttle to the other hand during the weaving process. So, passing from one hand to another conveys the meaning to give. When used in the second tone, 语, 语, it's a literary pronoun for first-person singular, I or me. Literally, the giver, the one who gives to another. It's not used in speaking, so I'll ignore the second tone. Even third tone, 语, is only found in formal phrases or expressions, and not a common way to say give something to someone. 予以 usually appears in expressions containing 4 characters and means to give out, deal out, or apply. 如此不道德的行为，需要予以重判。Such immoral behavior must be dealt a harsh sentence. 活动的重点，下面予以说明。An explanation of the focus of the activities is given below. 我们家的田地，天灾予以重创。Natural disasters inflict severe damage on our fields. When used negatively, 以 is usually dropped. 跟他讲道理没有用，他不予以理会。Reasoning with her is useless. She doesn't care. Literally, she pays no heed. 我怕这个构想上面不予认可。I'm afraid upper management will not authorize the scheme. We learned fourth tone 赠 in lesson 45, meaning to present as a gift, to confer or bestow. Paired with 予, it means to give or offer as a gift. 点字的说明书是赠予失明的用户。Instructions in Braille are given for visually impaired users. 中国把猫熊赠予友好关系的国家。 China offers pandas to friendly countries. The third character in today's lesson incorporates yu as phonetic. It's pronounced third tone, yeah, yeah. At the same time, I'm introducing the expression for a forest, 森林, sun with 3 trees and lin with 2, because they were originally part of the etymology of yeah, meaning the forested countryside. I've found no better explanation for yeah than the one by a well-known sinologist, Dr. L. Viger, who published his study and classification of Chinese characters in 1915. I'm quoting from his book. In the primitive fiefs, guo, established in wild regions, ye was the intermediate zone between the cleared center and the forest, lin all around, the zone where cultivation of the soil, tu, began. It was in that zone that the communications, yu, took place with the barbarians. Later on, when the clearing of forests was finished, the character became li, settlements where exchanges, yu, are made. Actual meaning? The country, rustic, wild. Dr. Viger's book is what inspired me to begin this series of online Chinese etymology lessons. Recent archaeological research has not always sustained Dr. Viger's analysis of ancient characters, but his semantic interpretations are often extremely helpful in understanding the logic behind them. Anyway, back to today's third character, ye. Ye can, literally, a meal in the wild, is a picnic. 明天我们全家要去爬山跟野餐. Tomorrow, our whole family is going hiking with a picnic afterwards. 在森林中生火野餐，要分外小心. Be really careful when building a fire for a picnic in the woods. 野地 means wilderness. 在天然野地中行走，使得我心情好. Walking in natural wilderness improves my mood. 田野 are fields or cultivated land. 雨下得很大，埋没街道跟田野. It rained heavily, inundating the streets and fields. Ye was originally the intermediate zone between the cleared center for the settlement and the surrounding forest, so it's a borderline area of sorts. 可言跟不可言，其中有分野. There's a borderline between what is spoken and what is left unsaid. Notice the punctuation, the comma, at the beginning of the line. In traditional Chinese books and printed materials, punctuation marks were considered a character and given the same full block of space. In making these PowerPoint slides, you've noticed that I try to squeeze the punctuation in wherever I can to save space. That would not happen in traditional typesetting. With the advent of computers and word processing, modern Chinese punctuation follows the Western Microsoft standard. No periods, no commas, no question marks, etc. at the beginning of a line. Punctuation marks in China follow that standard with all punctuation marks flat on the printed line. Whereas in areas where traditional characters are used, punctuation often follows the old standard of one block of space per mark, with the mark centered within the square. Now that I've mentioned this, I will choose freely whichever position is more convenient at the time, modern or traditional. Now, back to 野. 野外 is the wide outdoors, with a much broader scope than 户外, outside, that we learned before. 我巴不得加入你们的野外活动. I really wish I could join your outing, your field trip. 我哥哥今天是在野外工作. My brother is doing field work today, as opposed to work in an office or a laboratory. These next 5 examples simply carry the connotation of English wild, as in not tame or not domesticated. 野草把水沟堵死了，水通不过. The ditch was choked with weeds, blocking the water flow. 就是野马拖着我，我也不会去的. Even wild horses couldn't drag me there. This sounds suspiciously like a translation of the English phrase. 他用枪把那头野猪打倒了. He used his rifle to take down the wild boar. 屋子后面的那些野猫吵得要死. Those stray cats behind the house make a terrible racket. 山道左右都是野生的花. Either side of the mountain road was covered with wildflowers. Next we have 野 describing wild behavior, or playing in a rough and tumble sort of way. 你儿子太野了，你必须约束他一下. Your son is unruly. You need to restrain him a bit. 你们可以玩，就是不能玩得太野. You can play, but don't get too rough. 儿子玩野了，镇定不下心来念书. My son was so excited from playing that he couldn't settle down to study. The next phrase is 野心 or ambition. It can have a positive or negative connotation depending on the way it's used, just as in English. 他的野心比能力要大. His ambition is greater than his ability. 他是一个往上爬、野心不死的人. He's a real go-getter, aiming for the top. 她的男朋友好像没有什么个人野心. Her boyfriend seems to have little personal ambition. Today's 4th character is part of the 5th, so it's being introduced here. It's a traditional flowing outer robe, split at the front. The basic character for clothing, pronounced first tone, e, as a noun, and rarely 4th tone, e as a verb, to clothe. This tone change is common in Chinese, just as English changes the stress of many 2-syllable words to change their function, such as the verb produce, changing to a noun when pronounced produce. The phrases for raincoat, jacket, and sweater are pretty self-explanatory in these next 3 sentences. 看样子要下雨，你有雨衣吗? It looks like it's going to rain. Do you have a raincoat? 这件上衣真好看，你在哪儿买的？ This jacket looks really nice. Where did you get it? 你的毛衣跟背心一点都不相称。Your sweater doesn't go with that vest at all. In lesson 47, we learned the character 柱, the literary word for long bamboo sticks for grasping and stirring the logs in a stove to make a hotter flame, and that later used to refer to chopsticks for grasping and eating food. Here's a quick review of the original slide. Because of its usefulness, the bamboo top was eventually simplified to the grass radical, all the while retaining its original meaning of grasping and stirring. It developed 4 different pronunciations, one of which is second tone 浊, the one we need today. Since 浊 can mean a grasping movement, 衣着 is one of several phrases for clothing, literally flowing robes that cling to the body. English clad is an old past participle of the verb to clothe. So you'll notice an ironclad guarantee binds that character tightly, much like the use of 着 in 衣着. 她在衣着上眼力过人. When it comes to clothing, her eye for style is unsurpassed. Our final character today inserts the phonetic 里 inside the element for clothing, 衣, to create the character originally meaning the lining or layer of cloth closest to the body. However, that's not its most important use in modern Mandarin. It means within or inside, a more colloquial alternative to what I've been using up to this point, 中. We'll start with physical location and move toward more intangible uses. 这锅子里煮什么好吃的东西? What delicious food is cooking in this pot? 我把猫关在地下室里. I shut the cat in the basement. 男子把公事包从我手里抢走了. Some guy wrested the briefcase out of my hands. 这桶子里的水是要用来拖地的吗? Is the water in this bucket for mopping the floors? 五金行里找不到你要的东西. I couldn't find what you wanted in the hardware store. 他的信里头有着不可一世的口气. His letter has a very condescending tone. Note that unstressed 头 can often be added after 里头, with no change in meaning. 家里 refers to one's home or family. 她是我们家里最有成就的. She is the most accomplished member in our family. Just as in English, Chinese also says in someone's eyes, 在眼里. 在妈妈眼里，不论我说什么，都是顶嘴. In Mom's eyes, no matter what I say, I'm being disrespectful. 心里 refers to what's on your mind or in your heart of hearts. Be careful not to confuse this expression with the homophone just learned, 心理 meaning one's psychology or mental state. The context will make clear which character is intended. 他明显心里有事，以后再问他。He's obviously got a lot on his mind right now. Ask him later. 他没有把心里话全说出来。She hasn't said everything that's on her mind. 说心里话，我真不想去看林大夫。To be honest, I really don't want to go see Dr. Lin. Notice that both Sun and Lin are Chinese surnames, and in Taiwan, Lin is extremely common. If you're curious, the English spelling of this surname will give you a clue as to where they're originally from. This same double tree character is spelled and pronounced Lin in Mandarin, Lam in Cantonese, and Lim in Taiwanese. Final N in Mandarin regularly changes to M in older Chinese dialects. Northern Chinese speakers like to say 这儿, nar, and nar for here, there, and where. Other Chinese speakers prefer 这里, 那里, and 哪里 instead, because the retroflex R, r sound is not part of their dialect. That includes Taiwan, where I live. These compounds with li are perfectly acceptable Mandarin and easier to pronounce for many. 那里气候怎么样? What's the weather like there? 你找的钥匙就在这里. The key you're looking for is right here. 他问你去哪里? 干他何事? He asked where you were going. What business is it of his? And finally, doubling the characters li and wai to mean inside and out. 女宿舍需要里里外外清理一下. The women's dormitory needs tidying up both inside and out. 他精通儒家思想的里里外外. He's thoroughly familiar with the ins and outs of Confucian thought. Here is our color chart with today's 7 characters. 李也林森一李 and 雨. Here's a recap from today's lesson. 1. 3 of the 7 characters in this lesson are based on the character li, meaning a settlement. The other 4 enter into the composition of the first 3 in some way. 2. Li, with the jade radical, refers to the various layers in the marbling of mineral jade that must be taken into account when carving. This gave rise to various extended senses involving logical arrangement from terrace landscapes, financial management, step-by-step reasoning, and comprehension, and even heavenly justice, the proper way things should be arranged. 3. The shuttle of a loom reappeared as a separate character, yu, indicating the movement of the shuttle from one hand to the other, meaning simply to give. 4. The character for wild, forested countryside, ye, incorporates the shuttle to indicate the boundary where human settlement ended and the forest continued onward, and where communication and exchanges with indigenous peoples were made. 5. The character for undergarments, or the lining of a piece of clothing, contains the settlement phonetic li. Just as human settlements adapted to the surrounding topography, such as by creating terraces on hillsides, so clothing closest to the body, following its every curvature, takes the settlement phonetic. Besides the inner lining of clothing, li now applies to anything inside something else. Now you will find a short quiz on double, triple character, and longer expressions. Answer using only the characters learned so far. Thank you for watching and listening.